Just be yourself is the worst advice a middle-aged man can follow. It cost me $1,200 and almost my relationship with myself. Let me show you why staying authentic is actually keeping you stuck. You've heard the advice. It's on every greeting card and every inspirational post you've ever scrolled past. Just be yourself. It sounds like a relief, doesn't it? But honestly, I think it's a scam. It's a trap that keeps men our age stuck in a version of life that doesn't fit anymore. It's a permission slip to stop growing. And a few years ago, it cost me $1,200 in my own driveway to figure out just how dangerous that authentic version of me really was. If you've been feeling like you're just coasting, like this is just who you are now, I want to show you why staying static is the real scam. By the end of this, you'll see why the best thing you can do for your family and for yourself is to actually leave that authentic guy behind.
Now look, I'm not saying you should be a fake. I'm not talking about buying a bright red Porsche and pretending you're 30 again. That's just a midlife crisis with a price tag. What I'm talking about is how we use being myself as a shield. We reach 40 or 50 and we decide that our personality is a piece of fixed hardware. We say, I've always been a hothead, or I'm just not a guy who talks about feelings. We treat these things like they're part of our soul. But is that really you? Or is it just a habit that's gone on for so long you've forgotten you chose it? The truth is, if being yourself just means doing whatever's easiest and most familiar, then being yourself is the enemy. It's an excuse to stay lazy. It's a way to keep the same flaws that have been tripping you up since your 20s. I have a friend. Let's call him Mark. I've known him since JV baseball. Mark is a just be yourself guy, to the core. He's had the same diet, the same 3 jokes, and the same defensive reaction to any kind of feedback since the 90s. He calls it staying true. He says, people know what they're getting with me. I don't change for anybody. He says it with pride, too, like it's a badge of honor. But last summer, Mark's oldest daughter got married. At the reception, Mark was, well, he was being himself. He was loud, he was making those same old-school jokes that don't really land anymore, and he was nursing a glass of bourbon like it was his only friend in the room. I was standing near the buffet line, and I watched his daughter's face. She didn't look like she was thinking, I'm so glad my dad is being authentic. She looked tired, like she was mourning the fact her dad hadn't grown in 20 years. That's the cost of staying static. We tell ourselves we're staying true, but really, we're just standing still while the people we love move on without us.
If you leave a wrench out in the rain and it rusts, is that the wrench being itself? Technically, yeah. It's doing what iron does when it hits air and water, but it can't do what it was made for anymore. You try to use that tool and it's going to snap. It's just a useless orange hunk of metal. A lot of us are being ourselves right into a state of rust. We slap a fancy word like patina on it so we don't have to admit it's just rust. We stop sharpening the blade because we're comfortable with the dullness. Which brings me to that $1,200 mistake. It was 2018. It was late afternoon, light getting low. I was in my driveway, working on the electronic parking brake of my SUV. Now, I'm a DIY guy. I've always been that DIY guy. My authentic self doesn't need a manual, and he definitely doesn't need to pay a mechanic $150 an hour for something he can do with a wrench and a YouTube video. But this specific system, it was different. It needed a computer reset to retract the calipers. I'd read that online, but I brushed it off. I thought, I've been working on cars since these engineers were in diapers. I'll just force it. I grabbed a heavy-duty C-clamp. I felt the resistance. My inner self, that authentic, stubborn guy, was whispering, just give it one more turn. You're a man who gets things done. Then I heard it. A crack like a pistol shot. I'd snapped the electronic actuator. I'd crushed a $1,200 assembly because I was being myself, the guy who doesn't need to listen to instructions. I stood there a long time just looking at the grease on my hands. Honestly, I was an idiot that day. I wasn't being authentic. I was being arrogant. I realized that the me I was so proud of was actually just a guy who was too proud to learn something new. That was an expensive lesson, but it made me realize how many other parts of my life I was forcing with a C-clamp instead of just learning a better way. So, how do we stop the scam? If staying static is a slow death, what's the alternative? I want to propose an experiment. Just for 7 days. Let's call it a week of reps. We're not going to crush your old self or rebrand your life. That stuff sounds like a sales pitch. We're just going to try something new. For the next week, I want you to find one thing you do because that's just how I am, and I want you to do the opposite. Just one thing. Maybe you're the guy who always has to have the last word in an argument. You know, the guy who has to get that final zinger in before he walks out. For the next 7 days, when you feel that authentic urge to prove you're right, just stop. Let the other person have the last word. Don't even correct them if they're wrong. Just sit with the discomfort of not being that guy. It's going to feel like you're losing. It's going to feel fake. But you aren't being fake. You're being disciplined. Or maybe you're the guy who's not a morning person. Okay, for 7 days, get up 30 minutes earlier. Not to grind or hustle, but just to sit on the porch and watch the world wake up. Not because you're a morning person, but because the version of you that sleeps in is starting to feel a little bit like a version of you that's just avoiding the day. If you're already fit and disciplined, try a different rep. Try being the guy who actually tells his best friend he's glad they're friends. That's a hard one for guys our age. We'd rather fix a transmission than say something sappy. But try it. See what happens to the you that's terrified of being vulnerable. When you start growing, it should feel like you're wearing a suit that's a size too big. It's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel like you're not being yourself. But that's only because your current self is too small for the man you're becoming. You have to be okay with feeling like a bit of an imposter for a while. You have to be okay acting like a better man until the acting becomes a habit, and the habit becomes who you are. Think about the men you actually respect. Not the guys on TV, but the real ones. An uncle or a coach or an old boss. The men who were steady. The ones who didn't fly off the handle when things went south. Those guys didn't just be themselves. They did the reps over and over until that became who they were. They weren't born steady. They built it. There's a biological side to this too. Our brains like efficiency. By the time we hit 40, our neural pathways are like deep ruts in a farm road. It's very easy to just keep driving in those ruts. It takes almost no energy. You can do it on autopilot. Steering out of those ruts, trying something new, reacting with patience when you're usually angry, that takes a massive amount of physical energy. Your brain will literally try to talk you out of it. It will tell you, this isn't you. It will tell you, you're being a fraud. It will tell you, just go back to being yourself. But your brain is just being a lazy bookkeeper. It's not trying to help you lead a life you're proud of. It's just trying to save calories. It's like a truck stuck in the mud. You have to grab the wheel and pull the tires out of the ruts. Try the experiment. 7 days, just one thing. Don't do it to crush it. Do it because you want to see if you're still the one in the driver's seat or if yourself has just been running on autopilot for the last decade. Just observe. Notice the voice in your head that tells you this isn't me, and then do it anyway. We're all works in progress, even at 50 or 60. The minute you decide you're just going to be yourself and stop growing is the minute you start to fade. Don't let that be yourself scam keep you from the man you're actually supposed to become. Go do the work. I'll see you in the next one.